Right, well, let's take a look at the economic impact of these elections. For that, Jameel Ahmad from GTC Group joins me from Zhengzhou in China. Jameel, how are the markets reacting then to these elections here in France?
Thank you for having GTC Group as always. So far, we're seeing a little bit of, I would say, somewhat nervousness in financial markets if we're looking specifically at the expectation for the opening of EU assets today, including the euro that's been under some renewed selling pressure. But this is still just the first round. I'm not actually that surprised by the results. I think that everybody saw this coming. The questions now that are going to linger in the background, maybe as a shadow that's going to follow us, is whether this leads to more populist movements or a return to that kind of narrative elsewhere in Europe. But generally speaking, if there is a political change and if we do see some of these maybe potentially less friendly economic and global policies be implemented, then yes, we would have a more negative bias on EU assets, specifically the EU stock markets. And the same would also apply to the euro, because at the end of the day, this does also impact economic momentum. And nobody is a stranger to the fact that EU economic momentum remains in a very precarious and very sensitive position. That's been the case for many years. Yes.
All right, Jameel. So what could happen then that could spook markets? Any shock results from the vote?
We have a number of different elections and votes that are coming up. I would say that, yes, from France's perspective, if this National Party led by Le Pen does win, then yes, this would be a surprise to financial markets. This is more of a lingering to the narrative that, yes, populist and right-wing movements are definitely making more strides towards Europe. We saw the threats over the past couple of years, but we're now seeing a reemergence. Globally, though, we should not forget that we have the UK election in just a couple of days. That could also bring its own uncertainty to global markets. And the elephant in the room, or the shadow that's looming over all of this, is actually the US presidential elections that are taking place in a couple of months. And I refuse to underprice the potential, and I would say the probability, that the former president, Donald Trump, is going to become the victor in November. And last time we saw a very insular, less global stance from the United States when he was president. I think that this time, if it's Make America Great Again, it's going to be Make America Great Again on steroids. So I do think that political risk overall is an arching element that we need to pay a lot of attention to till the second half of 2024, which ironically has started from today because we've kicked off trading for the second half of the year.
All right, Jameel Ahmad from GTC Group, thank you very much for your insight once again.